Hey everyone, I'm Charmaine.
And I'm Yvonne.
Welcome back to part 2 of the SWE to PM process video. If you haven't already yet, please watch part 1 of this video where we break down the differences between being a software engineer and a product manager. But in this video, we'll talk a little more about the actual process of making that switch. So going through the videos and resources that you can use, etc. So we'll start off with just talking about differences between the interview processes. So you might have heard of cracking the coding interview. There's a PM equivalent called cracking the PM interview. And so usually in software engineering interviews, you'll get something like technical questions. They'll look something like lead code questions. And then you might have some system design questions, etc. And so what does the PM version of that process look like? So rather than having around like 2 to 3 types of different questions, you'll actually have maybe around 5 different types of questions that you'll typically encounter. And so the first one being behavioral questions. You get this in technical interviews too sometimes. So it'll be maybe answering something with the STAR method of you have a situation, you had a task, you did some sort of action, and then you talk about the result of that action and what happened, what you learned from it, etc. And then the second category is estimation questions. So this is new territory for those of us switching from SWE. And so maybe it'll be an estimation question like, how much money does Facebook make in ads every year? And then we also have product questions. So this is like product design, product sense questions where they ask something like Google Maps is launching a new version for schools. So how would you design this product? Then there's also case questions where you have something like they're asking about metrics or a go-to-market strategy or SWOT analysis, etc. And then we have back to square one of the coding questions. So this is more typical in places like Google or Microsoft where they ask maybe some sort of leak code question. So maybe something like writing pseudocode for breadth first search on a binary tree, or we have something like system design. So how would you design a new chat app? And this, again, is different from product sense question because you should be able to dive deeper into the technical details and like the technical implementation and trade-offs, etc. When talking about this said chat app, for example.
Yeah, and just to go off of that, I will now dive into kind of the more resources and further readings around how you can understand those type of questions better, and outside of that, helping you understand how to be a good PM too. So just to kind of go back and focus on the PM side, the PM interview side of it, just like Charmaine mentioned, cracking the PM interview is super helpful and important. We also recommend joining a lot of Slack communities because a big part of the PM interview process is being able to find people and mock and practice those skills that you've learned and read about, because there's a big difference between reading about the kinds of questions and how to answer them and using the frameworks, as well as the actually putting them in practice, being concise, being clear, coming up with creative answers to those questions. So I highly recommend practice, practice, practice. APM list and APM map are both kind of resources that will really help provide more context into what opportunities are available at what companies, what are the APM programs, how competitive they are, like what resources you can read around that to prepare for those specific interviews. And we also recommend, there's also the Women in Product Facebook group that also where you can meet other people to learn more about what life is like being a PM at X company and things like that. And then Exponent is one of the kind of paid PM courses available online that you can leverage to kind of provide like almost like a school type of course structure to learn more about how to interview for PM. And honestly, it's super helpful. They have a lot of practice videos that you can already find on YouTube for free, wink, wink, like just a hint. So you don't have to pay for all of it, but it is super helpful and I highly recommend it. Decode and Conquer is another one of those books, just like Cracking the PM Interview, that will help you understand the framework to approach these types of questions that Charmaine mentioned. And then outside of the PM interview, like being able to just continue learning about like industry trends and ways to think about problems and products. These next 3 books I think are really good for understanding those concepts. So Swipe to Unlock, Hooked in the Design of Everyday Things are great books to check out. And then finally, I think at the end of the day, when we are building products as PMs, we really want to focus on the impact and the reasoning behind why we're solving the problems we are. And the Impact Labs Fellowship was one of the programs that both Charmaine and I met at and attended and found really inspirational and really helped us see the impact behind the products that we're building and what we should be building, why we should be building it, and how to be intentional around that. So we would highly recommend checking that out as well.
Yeah, and on top of all of that, you get to meet just awesome people through the fellowship. So highly recommend that. And Design of Everyday Things is one of those books that like really changed my life and how I see the world. So those are great resources. Then we'll move on to just some tips and tricks. So I think the first one is a lot of people always ask if I'm a software engineer trying to switch into PMing, I don't know about it. Like, I'm really hesitant. And so the answer to that, I think, is if you're thinking about trying out PMing, you should just do it. I think the main thing is that there's nothing to lose. So your experience as a product manager will actually make you a stronger software engineer if you want to go back. And then the other way around as well, right? So you being a strong software engineer will also make you a strong PM. So I think either way, there's no going wrong there, and you should just do it.
Going into like for interviewing and the recruiting aspect of it, like especially when it can be kind of hard in the beginning, but you have the chicken and egg problem where you don't have the PM experience, but you want it, but you need the PM experience to get the PM experience. We recommend kind of applying for both SWE and PM at the same time, because a lot of the PM roles out there often really like people who are technical to apply for it. So we recommend having a separate resume for it and being very intentional with the wording and highlighting and reframing your experiences that may not necessarily be like explicitly PM related, but spinning it in a way that it kind of is. So essentially just demonstrating your leadership abilities and communication skills. And finally, like it would be like, it may be difficult at times to switch right away from SWE to PM, but just know that like it doesn't have to be right out of college. It doesn't have to be right now. It doesn't, you have the chance and opportunity to make that decision later on and try out SWE for a few years and then switch to PM. In general, like I think you can decide when might be best for you to try it out. And we also recommend checking out smaller companies in addition to those competitive APM programs that everyone's always searching for.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we've also said a lot about kind of switching from software engineering to PM, but there are so many ways in, right? So there are a lot of different types of PMing. You have ones who are more tech focused, you have ones who are design focused, or you're on the business side, or you're into data science, you're good with metrics, analytics, etc. And so decide which PM you want to be, or at least what you want to try first, and go for that. And then the last point that we really want to bring home is it's so easy for us to just sit here and list out all these things we can do in hindsight, but going through the process is just so tough. It's always tough, and a lot of it in the end really comes down to endurance, right? So don't lose the steam that you have for finding that perfect PM role for you. And just like in part one, we wanted to wrap up with another quote from our dearest Uncle Iroh, which is failure is only the opportunity to begin again. And so I think that's a really great way of looking at failure, and all the rejections, just keep them coming, and then eventually one company will say yes and we're good to go. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you guys so much. And we really want to highlight that this is really just kind of us sharing about our journeys and what we've learned from our experiences. A lot of it is anecdotal, and at the end of the day, we are students ourselves, and we're still continuously learning. What works for us might not work for you, but we really hope that this was helpful and informative, and really kind of remind you that the PM journey is a tough one, but just remember that you're not alone.
So with that, make sure you like and subscribe, comment if you have any questions, and we'll answer them. And we post videos every Monday. So See you then. We hope you enjoyed this 2-part series from Yvonne and I. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.